You're listening to SM Media, the number one place for exclusive Scottish football content.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Scottish Football Show. I'm Scotty Pike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. We are now at the final round of games before the World Cup break, and I think a break's been due for a lot of teams. I think a break's been due for us all. It's been hectic for the past few months, obviously with the return of domestic action, but we're now at the stage where the Premiership is going to be on hiatus until we get the World Cup out of the way. To join me to look back in the final round of games, it's a pleasure to welcome Graeme Duthie. Graeme, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Cheers, mate. It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Looking forward to this one. We obviously have a lot to get through the final weekend before we obviously we all kind of look forward to a Winter World Cup. We'll get your thoughts on that later on. We'll maybe play a wee kind of preview of the World Cup. We'll do a wee preview show maybe later on in the week for the World Cup. Let's start with, obviously, the Premiership results. We'll go through these games just one by one. St Mirren 1, Rangers 1 in the midday kick-off. Celtic 2, Ross County 1, Hearts 1, Livingston 1, Kilmarnock 1, Hibs 0, St Johnstone 1, Motherwell 1, and Aberdeen 1, Dundee United 0. It was not a weekend for big comprehensive victories, 6 tight games.
Yeah, it was very tight. VAR, as I'm sure we'll get to another rant about that, has played a big part in all of them, but it was very competitive. A lot of results that I found surprising. Kilmarnock beating Hibs was a big surprise for me. St Johnstone, for me, a really decent result at home against Motherwell, picked up a little bit. So yeah, there was a lot of tight games, maybe not the best of quality, but a lot of tight games.
There was, and it's that weekend, obviously, every game was tight. We didn't know what way either game was going until right at the very end with most games. So it was an exciting weekend, but we'll get into it. We'll start at St Mirren Park. St Mirren 1, Rangers 1. St Mirren, I think if you'd said to Stephen Robinson and any St Mirren fan that they'd be sitting in 7th place, levelling points with 5th place Hearts at the start of the season, getting into this break, he would have snapped your hand off for it. And he was close to doing the double against the old firm. They've obviously beat Celtic at St Mirren, and they were close to beating Rangers. We'll get into Rangers in a minute, but St Mirren, going into this break, they will probably be sitting pretty, and it's a big result again on Saturday.
100%. They didn't have a particularly great Premier Sports Cup campaign. I think a lot of folk thought Robinson might be under pressure, and they didn't start the league campaign very well. They obviously got beat 4-1 by Aberdeen, and it looked a bit dodgy, and then they started to pick up results, and at Paisley, I think they've been very impressive.
Yeah.
You know, they gave Celtic a really hard game, took 3 points. I think they were a bit unlucky not to take 3 points yesterday, but I think Jonah Ayunga is a very, very good player. He caused a lot of problems. I was very surprised he took him off yesterday because he was causing a lot of problems. Somebody I never thought would be major threat was Curtis Main, but he's actually looked a very decent player. Marco Harris looked really good. So I think all over the park, St Mirren have got a very, very good side there. They look settled. They know what they're doing. Up front, they've got that physical presence of Main and Ayunga. And I thought yesterday they did very well. Rangers had a lot of the ball. Didn't really create a lot of chances. I thought St Mirren defended really well. The penalty decision, it's good play by Ryan Kent. Really good direct play. Defender a bit clumsy to make that kind of challenge. But I think if you're St Mirren, you've got to be delighted with that because it didn't look great at the start of the season. But I think they've come on to a game, and I say in Paisley, at home, they look a very, very formidable side.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And as you say, their home form is leaps and bounds ahead of their away form, and it's their home form that's got them into this position. I think they've won 6 out of 7 games, 6 out of 8 maybe at home. It's form like that gets you in this position. And away form they'll probably want to pick up after the World Cup, but if you said to any St Mirren fan, they'd have snapped your hand off for that. On the other side of this game, let's get into it. We've spent a lot of time over the past few weeks talking about Rangers' problems. I have spoken many times in this show about the current situation at Ibrox, that it's looking like it's going to be an old-fashioned death of 1,000 cuts where it just gets worse and worse and worse. And by the time a change is made, it's too late. The damage is already done. But this can't carry on. This This is now at a stage where Rangers, there needs to be a change made. And I'm of the mind that the change cannot just be the manager. The entire football department needs slung out the door.
It's mental because this is a Rangers team that were in our European final last season, won the Scottish Cup, and you're thinking, can they build on that? Now, they have a lot of injuries, there's no doubt about that. Guys like Goldson being out, John Suter can't get fit, they're missing Helander, Tom Lawrence is out. They've got a lot of problems. But the biggest problem for me is that certain players are not performing for the manager. Now, prime example of that for me is Morelos. Yeah. I thought he was embarrassing yesterday. He didn't look fit. The worrying thing is he doesn't look interested. And
the thing with Morelos for me is, and I'm sure I'll obviously give you a chance to say that to me for Morelos yesterday is a massive chance for him to make his mark, because he's been at the club 4 or 5 years, and he's never, if he's been fit and he's been firing, he's always been the number one. Even with like Defoe and Roof when they were playing, if Morelos was fit, Morelos played. He's now been in a position where Cholak's come in and hit the ground running, and he's had to earn that way back into the side. Now, yesterday's a golden opportunity for any striker. Cholak's injured. Morelos should be using that as an opportunity to make a mark. And he's an absolute disgrace. And we spoke about it before.
I genuinely think that Morelos' nose is out the joint because Cholak's come in. He scored like 14 goals this season in all competitions. And Morelos now knows he's not number one. But when Cholak goes out, you look to who's going to bring on. It's Morelos. You've got to make a statement. You've got to say, right, I want to get my place back in this team. Yesterday, he was nowhere near it. He looked so far off it. His touch was poor. He's just the way he played. He just didn't look interested in that. For a Rangers fan, must be disappointing. The body language is awful. Mm-hmm. And I also go back to that St Johnstone game a couple of weeks ago that they lost 2-1. Now, if you lose I look at John Lundstrom, for example, who I think is a good player. Mm-hmm. But he gives the ball away against St Johnstone and he doesn't run back. He throws his hands up in the air like it's not my fault and just gives up.
Yeah.
That for me is not good enough. That shows a real lack of desire, fight for the jersey. It's like, I'm not getting that. It was my fault, but I'm not getting that. And I just think there's a real problem with Rangers just now. Again, yesterday, Rangers had a lot of possession. I thought first half, Tillman had a couple of decent chances. Scott Wright was lively-ish. But again, for me, and I've said this before on a few different shows, I like Ryan Kent. I think Ryan Kent's a very, very good player. But whether he's believed his own hype that he's better than he is, I don't know, because performances from him have been very, very poor. I thought against Hearts during the week, he made the goal, fine, and he gets the penalty yesterday.
Yeah.
But that's far too rare. Ryan Kent, for me, should be doing a lot better than he is. And there was a lot of talk about how much Ryan Kent would go for a while ago. Right now, he probably won't go for very much. And Morelos as well. You were talking about how much Morelos will go for years ago. Right now, you wouldn't get a pound for him. I think he's been awful.
And it's that thing with the contract situation that they've let their contracts run down, and even if they decide they either need to sell in January. There's 3 things they can do with Kent and Morelos. They can either sell in January, try and recoup something. They either get them to sign new deals, where I think there would be riots outside of Ibrox if they signed these 2 guys to new deals, or they let them go for nothing and lose massive investments. Now that to me is the dereliction of duty that this football board are really needing a rocket up the backside for, because it's easy. I know a lot of people are finished with this, with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, and I don't see how it improves. I don't think they will make a change. I think they're not going to make a change because it's going to be a lot to pay these guys off, and I don't think the Rangers board are going to do that. I think the Rangers board will keep this going until it's pretty much impossible. And I don't think they can bring somebody in as a manager. Say it's somebody from a top championship club who's going to cost a wee bit of money to bring in. They're going to have to pay his club compensation. They're then going to have to back him to the hill in January, because that squad needs major surgery. It needs absolute major surgery. It needs a full redo. It should have been done in the summer. It needs done over the next 2 windows, and it needs done quickly. You're going to have to bring in a manager who's going to do that, and are you then going to tell this new manager if he comes in, oh, by the way, you're having to work off this list that I've had for 3 years, because that's what's going on. And I don't want to hear anybody else say that's exactly what's happening at that club. Ross Wilson has had players for 2 or 3 years at a small budget, and he's going, right, let's get these in. And by the way, we'll give another year to Alan McGregor and just kick a goalkeeper situation down the road. What top end manager is going to go in and do that?
I mean, I wonder if that's I know it's a Premiership job he got at Aston Villa, but I wonder if that's part of the reason that Gerrard left, because of backroom staff and backroom stuff. But I just think, even if you look at Van Bronckhorst interviews after a game, he looks and sounds a broken man.
It doesn't inspire. It doesn't inspire anybody. I think he's been hung out to dry a wee bit by the board because he hasn't been backed. He's had a lot of injuries. But you know as well as I do, it doesn't. You could have 95% possession. If you're not doing anything with it, if you're not threatening, then it doesn't matter. And that's to me what I'm seeing with this Rangers team now.
There's a phrase that goes round that hard work beats ability if ability doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
The Rangers have got ability, but they don't work hard enough. And I think if you look at, just for example, Celtic yesterday, right, they're 1-0 down. At no point in that game did I not think they wouldn't win that game. For Rangers, it's complete opposite. Yesterday, at 1-0 down, I didn't think they'd win the game. And that's where the massive difference is. Think that Rangers side just now, even against St Johnstone, at no point when they were 2-0 down did I think Rangers will come back into this game. Now, they got the goal, but they didn't look like they were ever going to threaten. And I think there's too many players in that Rangers team that, for me, are not doing enough. Again, I mean, you're looking at guys like Ravi Matondo.
Yeah.
Is he good enough for Rangers? I don't think he is.
And again, injuries I know are a big thing, and I think that squad is down to the bare bones because it's been allowed to just grow bare. It's been allowed to. It's not been refreshed enough. It's been allowed. I mean, John Souttar's a good example of this. Now, I know you're probably the same as me. I'm a big fan of John Souttar, but there's a reason John Souttar's available in a free transfer. It's because he's got a bad injury record. If John Souttar was fully fit and relied upon, he would probably be playing at a better club than Hearts. Would you agree with that?
No, 100% it would.
Right. But there's a reason you can get him for nothing. It's because not a lot of teams are willing to gamble on him being regularly fit. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Jack. I've had arguments with people in the podcast with Ryan Jack in the past. I believe Ryan Jack's one of the best midfielders Scotland have. But you can't rely on him to play a 12, 13 game run because he's injury prone. Philip Polander has been injury prone. We know these players are injury prone. You can't rely on them. So why are people saying, oh, when everybody's fully fit, this team will be good? Yeah, until they get injured again.
What really surprises me is that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst hasn't signed one Dutch player. Now, he must surely have contacts in Holland that he can get a couple of players over, and he's not signed anyone from Holland. That's a surprise for me. And
it's that thing, we're not saying Giovanni Van Bronckhorst should be going out and getting 12 and 15 Dutch players in. We're not. But what we're saying is that it doesn't seem to me that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is going, I want him, I want this. Apparently he wanted a guy from France, and it was out Rangers price range, and they just didn't do it. And he went to Germany, I think it is. I can't remember what club he's went for. And he's been a revelation. I think his name's Fulgini, if I remember correctly. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst wanted him. We know the Joey Veerman and Scott Olsen stories from back in the day with Gerrard. There's a theme developing here. But the thing that gets me with yesterday's performance from Rangers is that I'm just looking through the subs that were made. Scott Arfield come on for Glenn Kamara at half-time. Now, I didn't think Glenn Kamara had a too bad a game, and I kind of understand that change. But he brought on Arfield at half-time, right? It didn't really change much. Obviously, the King substitution was utterly couldn't be helped. It was a terrible, terrible injury that King's had, and it's kind of good news that it's only a concussion he's got and it's not something more serious. But it doesn't make a change from 60 minutes and you're chasing the game. Now, he brings on Robbie Ewer, a striker in the 94th minute for Borna Barisic. Explain to me what is the point in bringing on a striker at 94 minutes when you've been 1-0 down since when, the 47th minute? Why is Robbie Ewer, and I'm not saying Robbie Ewer's young, is going to need a lot of time to progress. Why is he bringing on Robbie Ewer at 94 minutes? That's the sign of a manager who's lost everything. He's lost the dressing room. He's lost his own sense to make changes, because I could not think of a manager in Scotland that would do that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I genuinely believe that in the next few weeks, I think there'll be a change. Now, I don't know who Rangers will bring in, but I think there'll be a change, and I think there has to be. 9 points behind Celtic, a pretty dreadful European campaign.
The league's over. The league is absolutely over.
It is, and a really, really poor. Listen, don't get me wrong. The Champions League group stage, that was an extremely difficult group.
Yeah.
But for me, the levels in some of those games, I mean, to go 1-0 up against Liverpool at Ibrox, the crowd were right behind you, and then to lose 6 second half goals. And the worst thing is, Liverpool didn't have to work hard for those goals.
Yeah.
I mean, that is nowhere near good enough. That's performances. That's just so poor. And yesterday again, I mean, Rangers again, just they huffed and puffed, but didn't do enough. It's not like the goalkeeper at St Mirren was getting stretched. It wasn't like he was man of the match. There was just nothing there. And I think you watch Van Bronckhorst's interview after the game, he doesn't look like he knows how to change it. And I think even he now thinks he won't be in that job much longer.
But if you make a change midway through the World Cup, and if they make the AGM is, I think it's the 6th of December, and I can see that being really bad, and I think it will be really bad, because if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is going to be sitting as manager in that, football problems are going to come to the table. There's a lot of questions going to be asked about recruitment. There's going to be a lot of things asked about this board, and I don't think their character is strong enough to deal with it. But if you make a change midway through the World Cup, you're then asking a new guy to come in where maybe a week, 2 weeks before a massive run of games that could determine the season. Home to Hibs, away to Aberdeen. I think they're at home to Motherwell, and then at home to Celtic. They're 4 massive games, and you're asking if you're changing it midway through, if you're not changing it now and giving this new guy 4 or 5 weeks to work with these players, you're then putting a guy in a massive situation.
100%. And I think I've said this to a couple of mates as well. What surprised me is that before the transfer window shut, that Rangers didn't sign at least 3 or 4 more players. It was a very quiet end of the transfer window. That was a major surprise to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of feel sorry for James Sands and Leon King, because I mean, they're decent defenders, but they're not up to the standard that you need. And you know, that injury yesterday to Leon King, I hope he was okay. It looked a bad one, but even if you look at the goal, he tries to take a touch, just clear it. I mean,
it takes away because the save for Al McGregor is magnificent.
It is.
And then 2 seconds later, it's all for nothing, and it's just bad. And I just don't see how it gets any better without a complete change in personnel. And we'll look across the city at Celtic, and you mentioned there about Celtic came from behind to beat Ross County, a very resilient Ross County team. We will get your thoughts on the penalty in a minute, because I've got a wee bit of a rant I want to go on here about that. But Celtic come from behind, as you say, and this is the thing for me with Celtic. Celtic go 1-0 down, and it's a ridiculous penalty decision, and it is. But Celtic use that as fuel. Celtic did not play great in the first half. Celtic were lucky not to be behind in the first half, actually. But they kick on from that. They take it as oh, wait a minute, we need to get our act together here. And within 16 minutes, they've turned it round and they're in front. And that's the champions mentality. That's the sign of a good side, and that's the side of a team that's winning, that's going to win this league. And they've won, and the league's over. The league is over. And Celtic, again, they just keep going. It's not brilliant to watch. It's not the spark that we've seen in the past from this Celtic team. But there's runs you need to go on where you just need to grind out results and win games. And this Celtic team are doing it, and they're getting into this break in a fantastic position.
100%. When you're Celtic or Rangers, all that matters is winning the title. And Celtic are on the road to doing that already, and it's not even Christmas yet. And I think, again, at no point did I think they wouldn't win that game yesterday. Once they get the equaliser, it's just a case of how many will they score. And I thought Ross County did really well. I thought they kind of stifled the Celtic attack. I didn't think they gave them a lot of chances. Celtic dominated possession, as you'd expect. But even the equaliser, it's a great play from Hatate. You know, he takes about 3
He was absolutely magnificent all game. He's been a revelation this season, actually, because when he came in January, and he had that great wee start, where obviously his first game against Hibs, he was brilliant. He had that wee run. He obviously scored the double against Rangers, and he kind of went off the boil a wee bit. But see, this season, he's kicked on massively. Yesterday, he was everywhere, and I thought he was magnificent yesterday.
I mean, Japan must have some side if he's not got World Cup.
I know.
He was absolutely brilliant. That creativity that he's got to take 3 players out the game, and it's a great finish for Turnbull as well, through the legs of Laidlaw. It's a really good finish. Haksabanović's goal, again, a really good finish and good play.
You won't see a better finish than that all weekend. It was unbelievable. And I'm a big fan of Haksabanović as well, because he seems to be everywhere as well. He just has that versatility that for £2 million, he's looking at an absolute bargain.
He does, and he started to add goals to his game now. I think that's 3 in the last couple of games, so he started to add goals. So Celtic, while they're not playing brilliantly yesterday, they've managed to grind out the result, and that's all you need. And to go 9 points clear this early in the season, I mean, they are looking very, very strong. And I just don't see where else they're going to drop points just now, right, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't see Celtic losing the title. I think Celtic are winning this title. I think Celtic win this title comfortably by double figures. I think they're just rolling on. As I say, they're not brilliant. It's not the same at the start of the season where they were blowing teams away. They were scoring 9 at Tannadice. They're digging games out. And Ross County, I think as well. I think we need to give a mention to them because a couple of weeks ago we were talking on here that it looked a perilous situation. They weren't scoring goals. They weren't really getting much going. And in the space of a week, they're out the drop zone and they're just, I mean, you obviously don't pick up any points on Saturday. They weren't expecting to. But Malcolm Mackay will take a lot of confidence from that game and we'll go into this break thinking, we're in a good position here. We're in a better position than we were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he said after the game he was proud of the performance and he should be.
Mm-hmm.
So their season's not going to be defined by results at Celtic Park. They competed really well. They weren't embarrassed. They had 2 or 3 really good chances, just weren't clinical enough. And I think he'll be delighted with that. I think at the start of the season I worried for them. I didn't really see where they're going to score goals from. Losing like Regan Charles-Cook and Hungbo, I thought they might struggle. But Jordan White's chipped in with a few goals. The boy Hawula looks a very, very good player. I like him a lot. And they just look a decent side. So, they can come back after the break, regroup, refreshed, probably a few more players in January. But I think they'll be absolutely fine. I don't think they'll be top 6, but I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think I can see a big improvement in the past couple of weeks. And we will get to, obviously, the Ross County penalty. Now, this is an interesting one because I don't understand what Matt O'Reilly can do there. And I know I've not seen anybody disagree with that. What I don't understand, though, is the referee gave the penalty. Now, as the rules are something that I need explained to me because I don't understand how this is working with a handball. And I'm seeing it in England and I'm seeing it in other games I'm watching abroad as well. So it's not unique to Scottish football. This handball rule is a shambles. But the referee gives it and then VAR doesn't overturn it. Now, that says to me that the referee has got it right because it's in line with the rules. But what can Matt O'Reilly do there? Matt O'Reilly is not going there to try and deliberately handball. It's not denying anything. It's the ball direction isn't going to. It's not a penalty. It's not a penalty in anybody's mind. So what is this rule all about?
Right, I was on a show earlier on, had a rant about this. I'm going to do it again. But Matt O'Reilly's hands are by his side. Mm-hmm. There is nothing he can do to get out of the way of that.
No.
It's an absolutely shocking decision. And VAR, we were all told at the start of the season that, I think it was Ian Maxwell said that VAR is going to be horrendous for the first few months.
Yep.
It's been horrendous for the first few weeks. Now, VAR's the technology. That's not the issue. It's the officials that are using it. What on earth the guy in that room sees that thinks that's a penalty is ridiculous. And what makes it worse is the referee gives it. I mean, that's the second week in a row. For me, even the one by Bernabe against United, that's not a penalty either. I just think these referees have been absolutely dreadful. There's more decisions to come in the next couple of games that we're going to talk about, but the decisions this weekend have been absolutely ridiculous. And I just see if I'm a manager, I'm saying to my player from now on, see if you get the ball outside the box, hit it at the hand because it's a penalty.
That's the problem. That's the problem you're going to have. That's the problem you're going to have. But with VAR now, I agree that it's been a bit of a riot, and I think we all knew it was going to be. But we saw it in Saturday work to a degree because Kevin Clancy, for some bizarre reason, thought that Ryan Kent dived. Now, every single person watching that game didn't understand why would Ryan Kent dive in that situation. Kevin Clancy straight out to book him for diving, which again is probably something else I could go on because I think Kevin Clancy's the worst referee in the country, and I've said that openly many times. But VAR overturned that. VAR disagreed with the referee, had the referee look at it again, and they got the right decision. So VAR did work in that regard. But as you say, the next game, the Celtic game, how can a referee go look at that either on the field or on a television screen and say, that's a deliberate handball? That, to me, is the issue here.
Before VAR came in, there were 63 games played and there were 17 penalties given.
Yeah.
There's been 30 games since VR came in, and there's already been 19 penalties. Now, you could probably go back to pretty much most of those games and say, that's not a penalty. But the inconsistencies for me are what's causing me the biggest problem. You're seeing some referees giving stuff and other referees not. You're seeing some referees going to the monitor and some referees not. It is so inconsistent. For me, now the World Cup break is here, I would be getting every single official in a room and saying, we're sorting this out. So when you come back after the break, you all know what you're doing, because this is an absolute farce. And again, it's the time it takes as well. In the Hearts game yesterday, there were 7 minutes added on.
We'll get to that.
That was all because of VAR. It's an absolute disgrace that these officials, even with the help there, this is what that was brought in to help the referees, and they're making it worse.
Aye, and it's probably a good time to jump into that Hearts game. A 1-1 draw for Hearts at home to Livingston. Livingston took the lead through Stephen Kelly. Stephen Kelly then missed a penalty through a red card from Kai Rules, who's going to the World Cup, I believe, with Australia, and I think he deserves it because I think he's been a revelation. We'll get into that later on. But Hearts dug at it. They got the equaliser through Josh Ginnelly in the 97th minute. But before we get into the game, as we say about VAR, I watched Sports Scene. I saw the Robbie Nielsen reaction, and he's looking at the referee with a pretend watch on. That's the issue here. It's taking too long. And it's, as you say, it's ruining the flow of the game.
Well, I watched the whole game, and Robin Nielsen after the game rightly said that nobody had a clue what was going on, and that's the problem. There were so many decisions in that game that Greg Aitken got horrendously wrong. In the first half, Hearts dominated most of the possession, had a couple of decent chances. Shanklin should score early on, but places it over. I think he should score. Ginnelly has a chance later on. I think he should score, but there's two penalty decisions in that first half alone. They didn't show it on Sportscene yesterday, but there was a handball in the first half that wasn't given, and then Cammy Devlin is completely wiped out by the goalkeeper, and it doesn't get given. That's a penalty for me. Second half, penalty decision for Livingston. Yeah, it's totally right. Carol's shouldn't. I think Carol's has been brilliant, to be honest.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to make the challenge. It's a poor challenge. Great save again by Craig Gordon. But then later on, you've got the Hearts goal. Now, in the build-up to that, I don't think it's a foul on Newbley. I think Newbley stays on his feet. But Alan Forrest handles the ball in the build-up to the goal. Ginnelly then scores from that. Now, Ginnelly doesn't celebrate, and I'm convinced that he doesn't celebrate because I think he's going to get chalked off. And I, at the time, I didn't know what was happening either. 3 minutes it took for that goal to be given. It's an absolute joke. Nobody had a clue what was going on in the stadium. Nobody knew what was going on in the touchline. It's just getting an absolute farce right now.
Right, and it's, as you say, it's going to be something that needs to be, and this is the thing with VAR. It was meant to come in after this break. It was meant to be, why has it been brought in 3 to 4 weeks early when we know there's going to be, this is a time for the teething problems to be, we work in jobs where technology comes in to help us be better at their jobs. We are never ever given technology when it's not ironed out. We are always told to wait until it's 100% ready to use and there's not going to be teething problems. So why has this been rushed forward 4 weeks when it's still to be ironed out? And I don't think the referees are fully equipped to use it, which I think is another big problem. Why has this been brought forward? Because now you're in a World Cup break, and I tell you right now, the referees have got to get round the table maybe 2 or 3 times a week from now until the play resumes in the middle of December, of like quick fire classes, and get the referees up to speed in this, because this has been a shambles, an absolute shambles. And Ian Maxwell right now should be sitting embarrassed with himself in the comment he made, because he said it's going to be horrendous for 3 months. He's the reason why, because they brought it out earlier than it should have been brought out, because there is no organisation at that Scottish Football Association.
Even if you look back to Celtic Motherwell a couple of weeks ago, there's a really, really poor challenge on Starfelt. He doesn't even get booked.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Alec Cochrane makes a really poor challenge on Nicky Devlin. Again, nothing gets done.
I think that's a red card, by the way.
I think it's a red card as well. We should be doing it in the men. So again, that doesn't get a red card either. So these decisions, you're talking about, these things could cost teams, maybe not Celtic winning the league, but these could cost teams potentially top 6.
Yep.
It could cost teams getting relegated. You're playing with people's livelihoods here. You've got to get these things right. That's why VR was brought in to help you, and you're making a mess of it. You've got to get these calls right.
Yeah, but only in Scottish football would be brought out midway through a season and there'd been nothing asked about it. It's been a shambles, and the SFA should be embarrassed by the way they've been throughout the whole thing. But on to the game, I've got to say, we'll touch on Hearts in a minute, obviously, because I know you'll be keen to, but Livingston can take a lot of credit for their performance. They're really unlucky not to get the result. And we have spoke about Joel Nobley for so many times in this show. He was an absolute menace yesterday, and David Martindale was right to put a price tag on his head the way he has, because he is a real player for that club.
I'll be very surprised if Nobley still at Livingston in January. He's no disrespect to Livingston, but he's too good for them. I thought he caused Hearts a lot of problems yesterday. But the thing is, he's a big guy, but he's a good footballer. He knows how to use his strength. He's quick. He's good on the ball. Maybe doesn't score a lot of goals, but he causes that havoc factor. I thought he was great yesterday. We just couldn't. Civic and Rowles were just ragdolled by him a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I think Livingston have had a great season, sitting fourth in the league. I've said before, I think David Martindale is one of the most underrated managers in the league. I think he does a magnificent job with what he's got. He gets the best out of a team that maybe people look at him and think, oh, they're not a great side, but I think he gets them playing as well as they can. I think Livingston have had a fantastic season. Martindale's a great manager, and for me, Joel Nobley is an absolute handful.
Yeah, absolutely. Hearts, on the other hand, I think Rangers are probably a team that were looking for the break to come, but Hearts will be up there as well. They've been ravaged with injuries. They've played a lot of football. Their squad's been decimated. The break's coming at the right time, isn't it?
100%. We are. I don't want to make excuses, but the players that we've got out, they would all be starters. We've got about 6 players for me that would all be starters.
It's good to see Halkett back as well, isn't it?
That was great. That was a massive boost to see him back in. And I think we do need our players back soon. I think it's a great time. I think the fact that we played these European games and played on a Sunday, then playing Wednesday, I think we do need this. And I think the fact that we're only about 3 points off thirds, sitting fifth, when we come back, we've got 2 home games against Kilmarnock and a game in hand against St Mirren. I think we're in a decent position, probably better than I expected us to be in at this point. So I'm quite happy with the way that's gone. But then again, there's a lot of Hearts fans that still don't like Robbie Neilson, and if we get beat, it's Robbie Neilson has to go. We didn't lose yesterday, but again, you go on the Roasting Hot Twitter and Hearts fans are saying, "Oh, Robbie's negative tactics cost us." No, they didn't. We lost a man. We got back to 1-1. The way we did that, I'm happy with that. So I think no matter what Robbie does, he's going to be disliked by some Hearts fans, but I think he's done a good job so far. And I think when we come back after the break with those 2 home games, we've got a great opportunity to get further up the league and get our players back fit, and that's a huge thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a big welcome break for Hearts. A team that got into the break with a big result was Kilmarnock, a 1-0 victory over Hibs. Hibs we'll touch on in a minute, but Kilmarnock, they had a horrendous result on Wednesday night against Dundee United, and you saw Derek McInnes losing his mind with making 3 changes in the first half. I think his patience wore thin. He changed it up on Saturday. There was he needed a big response, and Kilmarnock gave him it. Danny Armstrong got the penalty, but it was a lot more settled. It was a lot more resolute from Kilmarnock, and it's one of those games that Kilmarnock will be delighted to get to that 3 points to get into this break in a better position than they probably could have been. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of quality on show yesterday. No, there certainly wasn't. I think for me, Kilmarnock really, I've said this before, I think Kilmarnock, this might sound harsh, but I think they've still got a championship squad. I think they've got some decent players in it. I think they absolutely missed Kyle Lafferty given that 10-game ban. I don't think they've got enough up front. I don't think Ollie Shaw, for me, is Premiership level. Danny Armstrong's done very well. I have to say it's been a really good signing for them. The penalty, again, I'm not sure that's a penalty. I think, it's a contact sport. There's not a lot in that. Nah, it's one of those. It's definitely in the box. Yeah, I think Kilmarnock needed that. A horrendous result performance at Tannadice. They needed to get back into winning ways. They've done that. But I still feel that they're going to be in trouble this season. I just don't see enough quality about them. I know Derek McInnes is a good manager, but I just don't see enough about that squad that for me is going to stay up. I think the thing with Kilmarnock is that Derek McInnes made 7 changes and they've won the game. And that shows you good management, because he's obviously saw on Wednesday and he saw it at half time. He made those 3 changes, and it did work, to be fair, because Kilmarnock came into the game a lot more in the second half. But again, they were so far behind it, they just couldn't get anything out of the game. But when you make changes like that and it pays off and you get the results, it gives you a lot of confidence as a manager that you can do that. and it builds up more trust in the players. But Hibs, on the other hand, I think the Hibs have got a lot of problems because I have watched Hibs a few times this season. I've been really impressed with some of the ways that I think they're quite a good team on the eye. The big thing that worries me with Hibs is when you take Martin Boyle out of the team in particular, they have a real lack of a cutting edge. 3 points out of the last 21. The way the league is so tight between like kind of third and seventh kind of helps Hibs to a degree because they're not far away. If they get a run going, they could be in a lot better position. But they really have to get their act together because it's been really, really poor over the past few weeks.
Yeah, it's great for me as a Hearts fan. No, I mean, I can see what Lee Johnson's trying to do. I can see the way he's trying to get them to play.
Yeah.
But if Martin Boyle isn't at it or isn't fit, they just don't have that They just don't have that cutting edge. Again, I think Kevin Nisbet's been a huge miss for them.
Yeah.
Elias Melkerson, for me, I'm really not convinced by him at all. I think Eli Ewan looks okay, but they don't have enough going forward for me. Their away form has been horrendous. That needs to get sorted. I know they lost in midweek at home to Ross County, but the home form's been okay. But away from home, they are so poor. And again, yesterday, they had a lot of chances, but didn't really have a lot on target. And a one shot on target the whole game. So they just don't. They have some decent players there, but they just don't look like they're going to score a lot of goals, and that's got to be a huge worry.
Yeah. And it's the thing we had as well is that there's a lot of you know this to the Edinburgh clubs. There's a lot of pressure to try and get third, and there's a manager doesn't get time, and we've seen that so many times in the past. I mean, Hearts and Hibs have probably went through as many managers as any team in that league, and you don't get that time. Even if you see a philosophy or a way of implementing a philosophy, it does work occasionally, but you don't get the time. And Lee Johnson, I think, if he doesn't get results after this break, he's going to be a casualty of that because it doesn't matter if you're trying to build something. It's a results-based business.
Well, they sacked Sean Maloney, who I thought probably should have got a bit more time than he did. Now, I can understand why they got rid of him, but I thought he deserved more time. And I think managers do get sacked very quickly, very easily these days. I think Lee Johnson will be fine, but he has to start picking up results, especially for home, because they do at times play some decent football, but they just don't have that cutting edge. And if you're not scoring goals, you're going to have massive problems. They need Kevin Nisbet back. They need Martin Boyle back after the World Cup, fighting fit and ready to go. And I think they need a couple more signings in January as well. Harry McCurdy, I've not been massively impressed by either. I think they just need that little bit of spark up front. But, I mean, again, I've said before, and I'll keep saying this, I personally, and I'll get shot down for this, but I've said it before, so I personally think Ryan Porteous is one of the most overrated players in the league. I've said that numerous times.
I've never been a fan of him.
No, I think he makes far too many mistakes. The goal against Ross County the other week, I don't know what he's doing. Yes, he played well for Scotland in that game that he played, but I think he is far too prone to mistakes. So I think Hibs have got problems, but I think they'll be fine again. But they have to start scoring goals, and they need to get that quality back soon.
And I've never been a fan of his character. I think there's a player. I've said it before. I think there's a player there. I think if you take everything away, like his character and his personality, I think there is a player there. But I do see he does make a lot of mistakes, and I think at times he's more focused. He's more focused in his own game than he is kind of. At times when he's playing with a partner, I think he can put his partner in a lot of bother because he's more focused and try to be the main man in that defence. And I think at times he can slip up. But again, Hibs will be. They're not sitting in a terrible position. That's the thing with Hibs. They're only a point behind Hearts. I know Hearts have obviously a game in hand, and it's this tightness of the league that I think will maybe kind of save a lot more pressure being on Lee Johnson than there maybe has been, because it's still a tight league, and all you need is 2 or 3 wins in a row, and you could be in a really good position.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 5 points between the Hibs in 8th and Aberdeen in 3rd, so it is so tight. So a run of results, and you could be right back up there. So I think Hibs just need to get those results going, but they need to get their big players back, i.e. Nisbet and Boyle. Outside that, I'm just not seeing enough quality going forward, but I think midfield, they look okay. I think Chris Cadden's a very, very good player on that right-hand side.
Yeah.
They are badly lacking Kevin Nisbet. They let Christian Deutsch go to Kilmarnock. That hasn't really worked out that well either. So they just don't have that quality up front for me.
Yeah. We'll move into the next game. St Johnstone won, Motherwell won. Quite a scrappy game. There wasn't a lot of quality here, but probably a fair result. The thing with St Johnstone is St Johnstone will probably be happy with a draw more than Motherwell, because St Johnstone are sitting I think, in a good position. Obviously, that big win last week. They're sitting in 21 points. They're sitting in the top 6. Again, Callum Davidson will say that's a massive. He'll be delighted with that. And it's one of those where they're beginning to get a lot deeper in terms of squad, and it's a month break. Everybody gets a bit fitter. I think St Johnstone could kick on from that. I really do.
They've been the surprise for me. Again, start of the season, given how poor they were last season, there was a lot of pressure on Callum Davidson, I think wrongly. I think fair play to St Johnstone board, they've kept hold of him. I think his signings have been very good, none more so than Nicky Clark.
Yeah.
I think he's been a fantastic signing. He's brought the best out of Stevie May. I think Ryan McGinn's been a good signing. The experience of Andy Considine, they look a much, much better side now. They look like they know what they're doing. Just go back to that Rangers game a couple of weeks ago. They didn't create a lot, but they did very well. So I think St Johnstone sitting 6 is a major surprise for me. And, at home again, I think they look a decent side. Yesterday wasn't a great game. David Witherspoon did really well to make the goal for Dre Wright.
Yeah.
They lose a goal from a set piece, disappointing, but there wasn't a lot in the game. But I think for St Johnstone going on this break, 6th in the league, I think Davidson would have bitten the handle for that.
Turn it around to Motherwell. I think Stevie Hamill's been quite unlucky at times. I think a lot of times they've maybe been unlucky not to get results, but a big frustration will be that Louis Moult and Kevin Van Veen were in that part yesterday, and they didn't look really as if they were causing much threat. That'll be one thing that Stevie Hamill will be hoping they turn around after the break.
I think Kevin Van Veen has been such a big player for Motherwell. We all know that Louis Moult's a kind of legend at Motherwell, and you need that partnership to work. Right now, it's not quite clicking yet. But I think after the break, I'm sure that during this break, they'll have maybe a couple of bounce games together, try and get that formation going. But I think personally, Motherwell have been so reliant on Van Veen. They don't have a lot else going forward. For me, Connor Shields isn't good enough for this level, in my opinion. I think defensively they're okay, midfield they're okay, but they need quality up front. And I think that's something that Stevie Hamill's got to get sorted in January. Louis Moult has had injury problems, we know that. But he needs to get back to full fitness, because if they can get him and Van Veen really sharp, they could be fine. I think there's been a massive change between Hamill and Alexander. Alexander's football was pretty chronic, to be honest. I think Hamill's got a way he wants to play, and it's been okay. Hamill ball, it's been okay, but they just need to get that front two working, because they could cause a lot of problems for teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably two teams that will be quite... We're relatively happy enough getting into the break, but final game was 6 o'clock on Saturday. Aberdeen versus Dundee United. A 1-0 win for Aberdeen. They now obviously sit third in the league going into the break. Miofsky penalty. Aberdeen, they obviously had a tough defeat on Tuesday night, and Jim Goodwin spoke about having to kind of alter the team to limit a number of things, but they did get a massive result. It was a penalty. It wasn't a brilliant game, but they kept a clean sheet, something they've not been doing. Jim Goodwin will be happy with that. He'll be thinking that's a big 3 points going into this break, because it settles things down.
Yeah, just grind out the result. They saw the results early in the day. They knew what they had to do. Just grind it out. Aberdeen's home form has been very good. Their away form has been horrendous.
Yeah,
that's where they're picking up most of the points.
That's a theme with a lot of clubs.
Yeah, 100%. That's where they're picking up most of the points. This was an occasion where VAR did work. A few weeks ago against Hibs, I thought Duke dived for the penalty. That obviously didn't happen that day, but yesterday it was a penalty. It was quick, it was decisive. That worked. Miofsky, good penalty. He's scoring a lot of goals for Aberdeen. It's been a good signing. I think Duke's been really good. But, Aberdeen granted the result. They weren't great. I thought they had some chances in the first half, but to be fair, second half, I thought United played very well. They had 2 or 3 really good chances. Kelly Rousas made a couple of really good saves. So I think Aberdeen will be delighted to get 3 points going into the break, third in the league. I think they can kick on after the break. Obviously, they've got a difficult game after that when they go to Rangers. But, Aberdeen will be delighted. Jim Goodwin's got to be delighted. But as with a few teams, he's got to sort that away form, because the away form is going to stop them finishing higher. Yeah,
Dundee United obviously going to the winter break bottom. A team whose away form has been bad as well. 3 points from 7 games away from Tannadice. Liam Fox will need to use this break to really get this team going, because sitting bottom of the league getting into a winter break is never good. And things have been obviously tougher than Dundee United, but he's been getting to get, like, Wednesday night was a good example. We can see what this Dundee United team can do, but away from home they need to improve.
Yeah, and I thought second half they did well. Dylan Levitt lays a chance on a plate for Fletcher, which for me he should score.
Yeah.
But their away form has been poor. But I think there's positives they can take from yesterday. They weren't embarrassed. Aberdeen have been renowned for hitting 4 at home.
Yeah.
They restricted them yesterday. So I think United can take a lot of positives from that. And I think Liam Fox will grow into the job. I mean, it maybe wasn't the ideal appointment. He's a very, very young coach. But, that's where United have gone down. I think he'll do fine, but he has to start picking up results. He's got experience there. Stephen Fletcher, I think he can score goals. He should have scored yesterday. I think Dylan Levitt's a good player. Middleton's a really good player. So they've got quality there. Mm-hmm. But I think, again, like a lot of teams, this break has come at a very good time for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the breaks came at the right time for a lot of teams, and it just shows you that this World Cup break is weird, and it's a weird time. But I think you've seen a lot of teams are quite happy to just get it and get a few things going in the winter break. A lot of teams are getting out for kind of training camps and things like that. But it's a welcome break for a lot of sides.
It is. I mean, it's a very random time. You're watching World Cup games at Christmas. It does feel weird.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the kickoff times are actually quite reasonable. It's not like 3 o'clock in the morning. They're actually decent times as well.
Yep.
But it's not. I mean, listen, I love football. I was brought up in World Cups and European Championships. I love World Cups. This one doesn't feel like it's got the same hype around it, which I understand because human rights stuff and it's in Qatar and it's a weird time. But I genuinely get buzzing for World Cups. I think there's potentially 7, 8 teams could win this. And I think once the tournament gets a bit further into it, once the group stages are done, I think a lot of more folk might get into it. But it's the fact that it's November, it's the fact it's in Qatar, and there's not been a massive build-up to it.
Right, Graeme, who's going to win the World Cup?
I have a sneaky feeling for Belgium. I think they've got a very good squad. They could have been a nearly men for a while. I really like Kevin De Bruyne. They've got a fantastic squad. That would be my outside bet. But I think for me, France look very strong. Kylian Mbappe, just a fantastic player. So I think France being the holders, you've got to fancy them. But there's a few teams could win this. I just think it's going to be really exciting. There's a lot of groups for me that look really exciting. Spain and Germany in the same group.
Yeah.
That's mental. I just think it's going to be a great tournament. The more it gets into the kind of knockout stages, but I just have an outside bet for Belgium.
I think I'm going to side with Argentina. I've had Argentina in my mind for a long time. Everybody knows me, Messi or Ronaldo. I've always went with Messi, and I think this is going to be Messi's golden moment. I think he's going to solidify his position. Argentina could play Portugal in the final. I think that could be the final. I've got a wee name the finalist bet going. I'm going with Argentina, Portugal. I just think they're 2 teams that could do well. Brazil, we know what they can do. Do you give England a chance? Do you think? I know England are getting into this in poor form, but they have a good tournament record under Southgate. Do you give them any say in that? Do you give them any chance of getting anything here?
I hope not, but they've got a very easy group for me. Iran, Iran, USA and Wales. It's a group they should get out of. I think there's a lot of England fans I've seen are not happy with the squad they selected. It's kind of very old and there's not a lot of, there's decent players in there, but not a lot of quality in there. So I think they'll probably get to around the quarterfinals, but I just think there's too many other better teams in there for me.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting into this in good form at all. And I think it's interesting. I do think they'll get out the group, but what they do after that, I think, could be very interesting. They've got a good tournament record. They could do something, but I'm not convinced that they're in the right position to do it. The World Cup's going to be interesting. We will be doing a couple of World Cup things over the next couple of weeks. I'll keep everyone up to date with that. But let's have a wee look at the Championship. We've got some games to run through here. Hamilton 2, Ayr 3 on Friday night. Arbroath 1, Cove 1, Dundee 2, Wraith Rovers 0, Morton 2, Partick Thistle 1, and Queen's Park 2, Inverness 1. The Ayr train keeps on going. I watched the Ayr game on Friday. I've been impressed with Ayr throughout the season so far. I think Debo Akinyemi is a great addition to that Ayr side. And they extend their lead and they're rolling. They're just keeping going. They're finding ways to win. It was so tight against Hamilton, who kept at it. They didn't give up. But Ayr found a way to do it. And that's, if Ayr are going to mount a title challenge, these are the games they're going to have to win.
Again, a bit like Newbley, I don't think Akinyemi will be at Ayr United for a lot longer.
I don't think so either.
He is far too good for the Championship. He's a far better than most of the teams in that league. I think Ayr have been fantastic so far. If you'd asked them at the start of the season, I don't think anyone would have said yes. But again, the Championship is such a tight group. I mean, Ayr United in first and 28 points. Partick Thistle are in 7th and 20 points. It's so tight. But I just think Ayr United looks very, very impressive. Hamilton, they worked hard, but again, there's just that that lack of quality. They're sitting bottom of the league, and I don't think they played that badly, but they just can't pick up results. And at home, you've got to pick up results. But Ayr United, just a juggernaut. And if they were to win this league, it would be fantastic. It really would.
Yeah, big wins as well for Morton, Dundee and Queen's Park, and it's tightly bunched. Morton, Dundee and Queen's Park obviously keep their wins going. Morton and Dundee are 3 points behind Ayr, and Queen's Park are 4. That's 3 big wins for them, and obviously when Ayr go and win on Friday night, all they'll be wanting is 3 points, and it just puts the pressure on Ayr.
It does. I mean, the games this week were actually decent games. I kind of thought Dundee would beat Wraith, but 2 goals for that Robinson. And I think Dundee are looking at a good position. Gary Boyer will be quite happy with the way things are going just now.
Yeah.
Wraith Rovers getting Lewis Vaughan back from injury is huge because he's got so many injury problems. Getting him back is massive. I just think the Championship for me is probably the best league in Scotland just now. It's so tight, so compact. Anyone can beat anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many teams that deserve to come up for me already. I mean, I think the Queen's Park story has been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a great job there. I just think it's such a good league.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of the best leagues of the season so far, and it keeps going. The other 3 leagues stay going throughout the World Cup, so we'll have our Scottish football fix, and it'll be good to see how these leagues develop over the next few weeks. League 1, let's just run through the results. Airdrie 1, Peterhead 1, Alloa 5, Queen of the South 1, Dunfermline 2, Clyde 2, Falter 2, FC Edinburgh 0, and Kelty 1, Montrose 3. I think the story of the day has to probably go to Clyde. They were 2-0 up away to the league leaders Dunfermline. Jim Duffy's obviously new in the job. Dunfermline come into it, 2 penalties from Kyle Benedict has rescued a point for the league leaders. But Clyde, that'll be a massive boost for them. I know Jim Duffy's come in and but immediately going to East End Park, I know being 2-0 up and not winning the game is frustrating, but it's a big point.
That's a huge point. Duffy's got to be delighted with that. Jim Duffy will do a good job there. Plenty of experience. He knows what he's doing. To go away to Dunfermline, which is not easy place to go, and I'm sorry, but it still sounds mental that Dunfermline and Falkirk are in League One. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't. Their Premiership teams in name, really, but it just sounds mental. So I think it's a great result for Clyde, and they can hopefully build on that now. Mm-hmm. Get a few results in the bag, but that's a great result. And Dunfermline will be probably quite happy they managed to get a point out of that, even though they're at home. They'll be glad that they've not got beat.
Yeah, absolutely. Falkirk obviously closed the gap now to 5 points, as the Montrose with big wins. Alloa 5-1 win over Queen of the South. Again, it's Dunfermline. They're still probably favourites to win the league, but Falkirk and Montrose, they're putting pressure on them. And again, Alloa, that's a big result against a team like Queen of the South.
100%. A great result for Alloa. They're sitting 4th. A very good campaign for them so far, looking quite solid. Mm-hmm. And again, the League One's quite tight as well. You've got Dunfermline first on 32 points, but FC Edinburgh are in 5th on 25 points, so there's not a lot in it. Yeah. Again, there's a real quality in that league, and I think Dunfermline, probably will win it. I don't think it'll be by a long way. I think they'll probably win it tightly, but I think Dunfermline have enough about them. Craig Whiting, I think he wasn't great at Hearts, but he's done okay at Dunfermline, so. Mm-hmm. I think they've got enough, but it'll be, again, it's another very, very tight league.
Absolutely, yeah. League 2, East Fife 2, Albion Rovers 3, Elgin 0, Dumbarton 4, Forfar 1, Bonnyrigg 1, Stirling 0, Annan 2, Stranraer 3, Stenhousemuir 2. Dumbarton, obviously, we spoke about them earlier this season. They were in a real good run of form, and results have went in their favour. Obviously, Stirling losing at home to Annan, who have picked up quite a bit in the past few weeks, but Dumbarton going to Elgin winning 4-0, and they're again 5 points clear, and they had a wee blip, but they bounced back pretty well from it.
Yeah, Dumbarton are looking good. I think they try and play decent football, which is great for that kind of league, and I think they probably will come up. But again, I think it'll be difficult because it's a difficult league. Still, and I've done well. Mm-hmm. For me, they're probably, I wouldn't say the biggest surprise, but I thought Bonnyrigg started the season so well.
Yeah, I've been surprised at how they've dropped. Yeah,
they've just really slipped. Sitting second bottom, they just can't win. I think that's a big result for them getting a draw at Forfar. So. They need to try and build on that. But again, these leagues are great. They're so competitive. But I just think Dumbarton might have more than enough quality to come up.
Yeah. And obviously as well, I think one of the results of the day is Albion Rovers going to East Fife and winning 3-2. And it takes them above Bonnyrigg and Forfar. That was a big result. Forfar, obviously, I think Gary Irvine obviously lost his job during the week. But Forfar will be looking to get out of bottom spot, because I don't think Forfar should be in bottom spot. They're a decent squad. They've just been really, really struggling. But a big result for Albion Rovers.
Yeah, 100%. To go away from home anywhere, win 3-2 is a great result.
Yeah.
It's going to be a massive boost for them. Again, I think Albion are a decent side, but that's a huge 3 points for them. Disappointing for East Fife at home, but it's a massive result for Aberdeen Rovers and they need to kick on.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're now getting to the point where we're going to go on a bit of a hiatus for a couple of weeks. The Premiership isn't obviously here, but we will obviously be keeping everyone up to date with the Championship, League 1 and League 2. We'll do wee roundups and things like that. But the show will be kind of going off for maybe a week or so just to we get into kind of World Cup fever and things like that. But Scotland do have a game. Scotland will play Turkey in a friendly. The World Cup is on, but Scotland obviously have a game against Turkey. It's a friendly more to just kind of Celtic aren't obviously sending players, which we obviously spoke about during the week, but it's more a case of with Steve Clarke getting some players some minutes in the internationals and just it's just a wee kind of I think it's just a game just to see how things go for Steve Clarke.
I quite like watching Scotland, but I'm struggling to get excited for this. for a friendly away to Turkey, I thought it was a great opportunity for Steve Clarke to maybe bring some other players into the squad, just to give him a bit of game time. But he's not done that. He's basically pretty much brought the experienced squad. I don't think there's any point in that. Bring a few more youngsters in, bring a like to Lawrence Shankland and see what he can do. I just think there was no need to bring such a strong squad. Trying a few more players out, see what they can do at this level. It's a friendly, it means nothing. So I'm not overly excited by it, I'll be honest.
It's a weird one because obviously it's a friendly. I think a lot of international teams haven't qualified are doing friendlies anyway, so there's no harm in it. But I did think he would maybe bring in about 4 or 5. Like I know maybe like you'll probably say about the likes of Barry Mackay. Can I get him in? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of players there. Like Lewis Ferguson's doing well abroad. It's a chance for these players to kind of get some international minutes in, and it will be interesting. I think Turkey are quite a decent side, so it'll be a good test. But we're obviously we're at the point now where we're going to wrap up the show. Graeme, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
Cheers, mate. Enjoyed that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for everyone that's tuned in. Please follow us on social media for more consistent Scottish football coverage. We'll have a lot of roundups and obviously West of Scotland show will be going out as well. Road to Cheltenham starts on Thursday. We have obviously a Cheltenham Anti-Post series will kick off on Thursday and run every week from now up until the festival in March. So tune in for that. There's going to be a lot coming up over the next few weeks, and obviously we're getting into the World Cup. We'll have a few World Cup things going out, so please everyone tune in for that. Thanks very much everyone listening, and we'll see you soon for the next episode of the Scottish Football Show. Cheers.